Welcome to the Soil CRC's Building Technical Capacity for Improved Soil Management webinar series, Surveying on-Farm Practices. In this video, Senior Lecturer from Southern Cross University, Dr. Hanabeth Luke, shares the preliminary data from the ongoing Soil CRC project, including the co-design process of the survey with the community. The focus is on the social, economic and environmental factors that drive farmer decision-making across multiple regions nationally.
Yes, so I'm at Southern Cross. I'm a senior lecturer in our Faculty of Science and Engineering. My background has been in science and environmental science, but my research training since my undergrad has really been looking at social dimensions of land use change. And I'm really interested in the different elements that are driving farmer decision makings that relate to how they manage their soils across Australia. I also do have also involved in coordinating some of the regenerative agriculture courses at Southern Cross University, I'll get started. So yeah, I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview on the project today, just a little bit of insight in how we get the information and what we do, and then a little bit just some insight into some of the data that's coming out of the project. Before I go in, it's a really multifaceted project. We've got, I'm presenting today as the project leader, but we have an enormous amount of people involved in the project, and every one of them is absolutely essential to it. And especially our partners who we co-developed the survey with. So I'd like to thank all of them, and Catherine, who's here today too, is in our project. So the project is overall around understanding this perennial issue, which I know that a lot of the communities and practice groups are looking at, trying to work on, which is why some farmers are wanting to engage practices and others don't. Understanding that there's lots of things drive farmer decision making, and some of those are economic, some of them environmental, and are also social. So we're really looking to focus in on those, with the ultimate aim being to understand how grower groups and our regional partners, our local CMAs that are engaged, can better engage with their growers, and how the needs of growers can drive future research strategies and R&D for local grower groups, and also for the Soil CRC itself. So it's run in every state. We work with local partners to run a survey in every state, and we've now conducted 3 surveys. It's a well-established survey methodology. It's a mail-out on which we post out surveys and reminders to a selected region. But we purpose-built each surveys for every region. And a really key element of the survey is that our regional partners have a lot of input into the design. And it's spatially referenced data as well. So that means that we're able to look at, say, the relationship between what farmers are doing in their practices and their soil type as well. So we can map that spatially with the data that comes out of this. And the Soil CRC also has a milestone to do more surveys in 4 to 5 years' time. So we can also measure change in time. So here's a little, just an example here of what the spatial data can do. This is just by local government area. And this is from our survey in the north central Victoria. And just if you look at the full-time farmers is the dark part of the circle, you can see the further you go away from Melbourne, the more full-time farmers you have. So when you can present data spatially, it can as a really nice different element to your understanding. So just a little bit of insight into how it all works and how we've set up our surveys, and then a bit of information, because how it works is really important, because I think it demonstrates that the results that come out of this really are farmer driven, and that's what this project is all about. But it's based on all these sociological principles, that the values that we have and the beliefs and the norms, the things that others are doing around us will guide the decisions that we make, and understanding that all of these things will influence management practices, and there are some things that we can't change, but we can better understand. There are some things that we can change. We can improve farmer knowledge and confidence in different technologies. And if we're able to better engage farmers, we can potentially improve management practices as well. So the way that we go about this, identifying priorities that go in each survey, is part of a co-design process. And this is the AREP and Landscape Board group from South Australia. This is the committee there. And so We work with the local partners. We invite key persons from a region to develop the priorities for the survey, which will relate to the needs of that of the local groups. So this particular workshop, which we've been in Minapa, on the Eyre Peninsula, we found that key things were looking at, they wanted to understand how to come together as a group, what was happening for young farmers in particular, and how to build farm resilience into the future and how to adapt. So these were the key priority areas that came out. And that's what we then put questions through the survey to try and understand the different elements to be able to answer their key questions that we bring together in the report. So that's what the survey looks like. We send it out either to a random sample across the region or to all landholders in a selected region with properties over 10 hectares. So it goes out to everyone. And they mail them back to us. We send them lots of reminders, and then we write up a report, which is available on the Soil CRC website for those of you who might be interested in. And also there's a short sort of summary sheet that's available as well. So a big part of this project is providing really good information that can get back to growers in the easiest way possible. But the key thing that's really important as well is that what we're doing can feed into strategic planning for our grower group. So this is out last month on the Eyre Peninsula in Port Lincoln, where we were able to put some input into the strategic planning day that they were doing, and be able to provide real measures for their strategic planning, like the level of membership in the region and the proportion of people who'd heard of them can really be embedded into strategic targets as well. This is just an infographic that we put together as a result as well. Don't worry, I won't be testing you on all these details, but just to show you some of the things that we're doing to try and present our results to communities. And Naomi presented these findings at the one of the field days recently. So that's the methodology. That's how we get to gain the information. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of insight into some of the different things that have come from the project. So looking at farming structures, we look at different types of farm management styles on farms. So we have full-time farmers, part-time farmers across regions. We found this was particularly in the north central catchment management area. This was really important. There were a lot of different types of farmers and a big proportion of them across the areas. But this has been quite different between South Australia and the northern wheat belt because there's just such a larger proportion of farmers in the region. So we're able to get this demographic and understanding of what practices are out there. But also we're able to find out what is important to farmers and what are the things that are driving their decision makers and decision making. So in South Australia, we have a range of values that we ask farmers to rate as important. And this is one thing that came out as key across surveys, the ability to pass on a healthier, more sustainable farm for future generations. This really seems to be a number one thing for farmers across the board. We also look at the information that farmers are gaining and where they get that information from, which could be really important for our partners in targeting where they will target information in the future. And we look at channels and we look at sources, so ways of conveying the information and ways and the sources of that as well. So we're interested in what farmers find important across the region, what the regional issues are. And we're also interested in what the soil issues on the property of the farmer as well. And we found that these can vary substantially across regions. So just to compare a little bit across the regions, we found that issues across the landscape have actually been quite different across regions. So in north central Victoria and northern wheat belt, it's actually changes in weather patterns was the number one issue. In north central Victoria, issues around dams and irrigation were really, really important. But it's important to note those questions weren't even in the other surveys because there's very little irrigation. It's just not an issue because it doesn't really happen there. In South Australia, the absence of on the Eyre Peninsula of services was seen as a really key issue. And support for new and young farmers came out as really important on the Eyre Peninsula as well as water security, which is obviously related to changing climate. But support for new and young farmers came out as important. Also, we found through looking at our data across those 3 regions that there were just a lot more younger farmers on the Eyre Peninsula. There was such a small amount in Victoria and Western Australia who filled in the survey that we weren't able to analyse their results in a different group because the numbers were just so low. Whereas in South Australia, we divided the ages up by generation and found that there was a significant number of younger farmers there who filled the survey in. We also found public support or opposition for agricultural practices popped up as quite important. That actually came up as number 4 on the Eyre Peninsula as well. Information sources. One of the key things that we're finding across these regions is that there's very few things that actually are similar across regions. There are lots of differences, even in the way people are using information. So whereas you can see here that in the different areas, there's some very different ways of using information. And then when you start to divide the farmers up by age, again, you do find what you'd expect, which is that there are more younger farmers moving towards the use of websites and say Facebook or Twitter rather than newspapers or things like that. So there is differences by age again, but we did find also to note other farmers wasn't an option in the North Central survey, but that's come up as a really, really important source of information, which can create obviously a pool of knowledge and just emphasizes the importance of other farmers in that knowledge sharing. And trust in other people is a really important thing in terms of how people gain knowledge. So trust in the organizations, the partner organizations, and also in government departments that are providing agricultural information is really, really important. But people tend to trust people they know. Some generational differences we found in South Australia is that, so the generation Y, so that's 1918 younger, were the most likely to include another person in their decision making. They felt less supported in their farming activities and were slightly less likely to be involved with industry groups, farming systems groups. This is some of our West Australian data, hot off the press. So here you can see, even in practices, so between those who are 57 and over and 56 years and under, people who are intending, maybe it just shows young people have got more intentions, but there are some differences coming out in terms of intended practices in the future as well. But there are some really important common elements, and that number 1 value held by farmers, which are the ones that they attach particularly to their farm, was this ability to pass on a healthier farm for future generations. And looking after my family and their needs was really important across regions, but also creating wealth and preventing pollution came up as key across regions. So I just want to zoom in a little bit on one of the things that we can do with this data. I know I'm pretty much coming up to time, but so actually looking at what the issues are, and this I hope might be a part of a focus of our future efforts, understanding what's important to farmers. So you've got the issue on the left-hand side there, and the practices on the next, and then their confidence in those practices, and then knowledge of those practices over on the right-hand side. And when you start to bring this together, you can start to get an understanding of what might be some of the barriers to change. If you want to change practices or have a particular innovation or idea that you want adopted, or so just something as simple as soil testing. We found that around this, and this was common across regions, but only half of farmers are doing testing of soils. seeing it as an essential first step was no issue, but preparing a nutrient budget, again, not such a high proportion. But then when you start to look at, again, at the knowledge levels of in relation to different issues and practices, you can start to potentially focus efforts of the farming systems groups on those elements. So again, this is all from our South Australian data. Yes, and practices you might want to target. So bringing all of this together, from our surveys, we're able to better understand what is motivating people, what might encourage them to change, and then identify the things that can be changed and support strategic planning for our local grower groups that's informed by farmer needs across regions. And in that way, hopefully we can achieve that long-term goal of the Soil CRC to improve soil stewardship across Australia and healthier landscapes and productive farms. So this is just how it all fits together so we can improve practices for the future. So just to summarize, our surveys are designed with our local partners to come up with the main topics and things that are relevant to each region. And they can draw out a whole range of different elements related to demographics and practices, all sorts of things. But the key thing that the reason that we're doing this work is to have high value for our farmer groups, for the Soil CRC, and ultimately for Australian farmers. But what's really exciting about this project is that we're able to create a national data set about what farmers are doing across Australia. So it's a really exciting opportunity to gain up that broader understanding of what's happening.
Thank you for watching. If you found this information useful, there are many more related projects to discover at our website. Please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Soil CRC webinars, project updates and conference presentations. This webinar series was produced by the Soil CRC, jointly funded through the Australian Government's National Landcare program, to build the technical capacity of natural resource management agencies, landcare and grower groups to deliver soil health information to farmers for improved soil management. For more information about our projects, visit soilcrc.com.au.